So I'm trans, and here is my hot take. I didn't want to date a trans person.
We love making fun of anti-vaxxers.
So you see, it's perfectly acceptable to make fun of the groups that she doesn't like.
If gender is on a spectrum, then homosexuality doesn't really exist because it can only exist in a binary.
We just became so woke that we cured homosexuality by simply stating that it doesn't even exist in the first place.
I'm super straight. I only date the opposite gender, women, that are born women.
And I just think that this is so stupid.
The fact that people are upset over this new sexuality being created is a little hypocritical coming from the folks who created abrosexual, demisexual, gerontosexual, gynosexual, intersexual, calosexual, multisexual, homosexual, sapiosexual, and literally hundreds more.
Actually, I'm offended by you calling me a cis man.
And it is actually used as an insult when people are called cis.
The transgender debate has become so insane that it has lost all meaning and is now collapsing in on itself, because currently transgender activists are just making stuff up as they go along, and when you build your arguments on quicksand and feelings, it tends to quickly collapse. Trans people want to come up with new pronouns and gender identities every single day, and when they decide how you should call them, then you must comply or you are a transphobe. However, trans activists insist on calling everyone who is not trans, which is well over 97% of the population, a cis, and if you disagree with them, you are called a TERF. Just think about how insane that is, that a community of people that advocate so strongly for the right to change their own gender and how they should be referred to, now wants to fully dictate how they can refer to you. Currently, people are getting banned on social media for using the wrong name of a person because this is now such an offensive act. But calling somebody cis or calling them TERF can be done freely, even if those people don't want to be called that. How does that make any sense? So I'm not allowed to call a trans woman a biological man, which she actually is. However, she's allowed to call me a cis man. How is that not the exact definition of hypocrisy?
We talk about kids being confused by this. The truth is that if you're not a cis man or woman,
You're calling me a cis man. I'm a man.
Well, fine, and that's how you can identify.
Stop calling me.
But
I feel insulted and offended that you're calling me a cis man when I'm actually a man.
Now, I do not agree with Piers Morgan on most things, but in this, he's absolutely correct. And did you notice how the activist tried to laugh away the fact that he was lost for words and that he realized he could not defend the argument when you are defending the use of pronouns? So if you agree that it's very hypocritical to demand free use of pronouns on yourself while forcing others to use very specific ones they don't even want, then please drop a like on the video and comment down below. This is the whole problem with the transgender debate, since most of these arguments don't make sense when you put them under a microscope and you start testing them in real-world situations. Take trans dating for instance. It's absolutely insane to me to see so many trans activists actually reduce transgender people to simply walking vaginas and penises just for the sake of winning an argument.
You can have a genital preference, of course, if you don't want to date somebody with a penis. That's fine. You can, that's a real life thing. You may not want to date that person after you find out what genitalia they have.
And I think these people do not understand that. They don't understand that at all. They have a preference to a specific genitalia, right? They have a preference for that.
Not only is this completely incorrect, but it's also highly sexist. Because men are not allowed to reduce women to just a bunch of different vaginas, there's a whole movement against objectifying women.
Which, first of all, the first thing that you think about when you think about women is a vagina. Pretty objectifying if you ask me. Of course, if you don't want to date somebody with a penis, that's fine. You can, that's a real life thing. You may not want to date that person after you find out what genitalia they have.
I truly wonder if trans activists can even hear themselves. Because this woman just said in the very same video that not dating trans people based on their genitalia is perfectly fine, and then she proceeds to judge someone for doing exactly that because they only want to date women with vaginas. It makes no sense.
Gay men often pride themselves on being disgusted by vaginas, and the same goes for lesbian women with penises. But I don't think they're innate at all. My point is, we have implicit biases that we were raised with or that we developed over time.
The reason you don't like penises is because society tells you you shouldn't like penises. That's what I'm saying.
So are you saying that gay people aren't born this way, that they're learning to crave
Yeah, you need to refer to me with my proper pronouns.
This is the sad state of the trans debate and why so many people have a problem with trans logic, or rather the non-existence of it. But actually it goes much further than this, because wanting to date or not wanting to date a trans person is not just about having penises or vaginas, although yes, it is a major part, but it's not the only thing. For instance, I like to travel a lot, and when I do, I book rental cars. Now I have a preference for BMW and Audi, so if they bring me a Mercedes, it would be a little disappointing, but I would still drive it. Which means that I prefer Audi over Mercedes. However, I do not prefer vaginas over penises. I only want vaginas. I don't want anything else. Do you see the difference here? Now Noah himself, who is trans, says that he doesn't date trans people because of 1, their mental state, and 2, he wants to have biological kids.
I made a video last year where I talked about why I didn't want to date a trans person. Long story short, I already have dysphoria, and double dysphoria, you know, the thought of like having that everywhere in like every aspect of my life would make me uncomfortable. I also want biological kids, and there's a whole bunch of reasons. So
already we see that the first argument has nothing to do with genitalia at all, and the second argument doesn't even apply in Noah's case, because he's actually a bisexual trans man, which means that he has a uterus and is attracted to both women and men. Now in order for him to conceive a biological child, Noah would need either a man or a trans woman, and since he is bisexual, both are an option for him according to his own logic. So clearly when it comes to having children, he can actually date a trans person, he just doesn't want to, which is perfectly fine, but then don't hide behind the fake excuses. So we're just 2 points in, and already the trans hypocrisy is showing very clearly, because a lot of trans people do not want to date other trans people, but when they hear this from non-trans people, all hell breaks loose. But it gets much worse, because in addition to this, a lot of trans people are also very dismissive when you bring up the point of having your own biological kids, as if it's such a minor thing, and that non-trans people are making it bigger than it really is.
The necessity of being able to have biological children. This one is just like, if you really need to have your own biological children that badly, like, okay.
I also want biological kids.
These are 2 major social media influencers in the trans community, and they are literally saying the exact opposite. From Noah's video, you can tell how important having your own biological kids is to him, and in the Samantha Lux video, she's just brushing it off as a minor non-important thing. So unless you're talking quantum physics here, 2 opposing things cannot be true at the same time, which is why you can't decide for someone else what is and what isn't important. You would think that a trans influencer and activist would actually know that. I can honestly say that for me personally, the trans ideology might be the biggest reason for not wanting to date or have kids with a trans person, since I would not want to raise our kids as gender neutral, or even worse, put them on puberty blockers, which is simply chemical castration, and that's the original name for those drugs. I would also not want to let a 14 or 16-year-old that is not allowed to drink, vote, or decide with whom they want to have sex undergo plastic surgery that can scar them for life.
I absolutely felt like my life was ruined for like several years, and I still experience a lot of pain and like regret about it pretty much every day.
Clearly, trans ideology is much more than just an opinion. It's actually a major part of who a person is and what they stand for, which makes it very misleading to say that dating trans people is just about genital preference. It would be the same as a hardcore vegan or animal rights activist dating someone who goes big game hunting in Africa. Not to mention that when you date someone, you also date their friends, who are probably also trans or at least trans activists. So good luck if you are a white, straight, biological male, because they will be shitting on you non-stop, and if you are a woman, you will be called a TERF all the time. Now who wants that? Nobody. Now the dating hypocrisy is just one of many issues, and I will cover the others in later videos. However, there's just one more fallacy I want to cover in this one, and that is the idea that the transgender ideology is about letting children choose instead of forcing a social construct upon them. That transgender ideology is somehow neutral and that it lets kids discover which gender they are.
Hazel decided that they were non-binary when they were about 4. They had been exploring gender before that, you know, trying on different pronouns.
This is simply not true, since children are born as blank slates, which holds true for not only humans but also for animals, and this becomes very clear when you place newborns of different species together. They will simply conduct themselves in the same manner as their perceived parents because they don't know any better. Observational learning is one of the most powerful tools children use to learn from their parents, and it's why you must speak to your child even if they can't speak themselves. So this whole premise of gender neutrality and letting children choose their own gender means that you have to tell the child that they can choose their gender, therefore imprinting them with the belief that your gender is open for interpretation and that it was not assigned at birth. Clearly, this is not neutral since you are still imprinting a social construct, namely the construct of transgender or gender fluidity, and immediately installing doubt in the mind of a child that they might not be born in the right body. All you've managed to do is simply replace one social construct with another, and so what do you think happens when a child has non-binary or trans parents and is being told to choose or explore their gender? This will simply result in many more children choosing a non-assigned gender and be put on different drugs and hormones to then later proceed with surgery even though they never had gender dysphoria. You are simply confusing children by enforcing your ideas upon them. Raising biological boys as boys and biological girls as girls will give them guidance and clarity and allows them to function in society. It gives very clear explanations of why your body looks the way that it does and why a girl's body functions differently than that of a boy. For the very small group of people, less than 2% of society, that actually have gender dysphoria, you can still be accommodating if they themselves come forward and ask for this. But to put this choice before 4-year-old kids is absolute madness and means that you're not waiting for signals of gender dysphoria, but you're actively trying to create it. This was the hypocrisy of trans ideology. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.